Fix old cameras. Your successful completion of the demonstrated repair ultimately depends on the quality of your tools, the condition of your camera, and most importantly, your repair ability.
The counter dial on this Canon F1 is not resetting with the film door removed or opened. Yes, the counter is certainly stuck. To access the counter dial, the top cover on the right side or advanced side of the camera will need to be removed. An adjustable spanner wrench or a custom spanner wrench remove the advanced lever cover. The advanced lever, along with a stack of washers, a spring washer, and a spacer washer, can be lifted free of the camera. Using pressure on either side of the advanced lever post washer, lift it free of the camera. Seep some isopropyl alcohol under the shutter speed dial screw decorator plate. Using a pry tool, lift the shutter speed dial decorator. Be sure that the glue is sufficiently softened and care is taken in lifting the shutter dial decorator. Carelessness. The scratch was avoidable. That's how it needs to come off, easily. The glue will soften if given sufficient time. Now set the shutter dial to 2000 and the ASA to 25. By doing so, the linkage tension is minimized. An appropriately sized slotted screwdriver and some more isopropyl alcohol should loosen the retaining screw enough that it can be removed. Particularly when removing slotted screws, make certain that the downward pressure is equal to the torque. With the center screw removed, you might need to slightly rock the shutter dial as you lift it to get it to come freely up off the camera. Note the slotted post on the shutter dial linkage cam and then the post also on the shutter dial. Remove the 1, 2, 3, and 4 screws of the front plate. With the front plate removed, look for the screw hiding underneath it. Also remove the screw on the end and the one living beside the viewfinder. A good sign: by relieving the pressure of the top cover, the counter dial reset. And there are 3 shutter release button set screws that will need to be removed. No, not removed, simply loosened. Once the 3 set screws are just loose enough, the shutter release button ring can be lifted free. Note the detent spring that remained in the shutter button release ring. Under the shutter release ring, you may or may not find a small thin washer. For certain, you will find the detent ball bearing. Carefully lift the shutter release button lock lever free, followed by the right side top cover. A loose counter window is the cause of the counter dial not functioning earlier. With the loose counter window not pinned between the counter dial and the top cover, the counter dial rotates freely. The counter window will need to be glued back into place. Pliabond works ideal in this application. A drop on the end of a Q-tip stick spread around the edge of the window opening. Let it dry just for a little bit to get tacky, then seat the window. Make sure you install it right side up as there is a grooved edge. Once the Pliabond glue is set, the top cover can be repositioned. An item of note is you'll need to clear the shutter dial release linkage post as you seat the top cover. Hopefully, it is somewhat obvious that the top cover screws and the front plate screws are installed in the reverse order of how they were removed. A 2.5 JIS crosspoint screwdriver works nicely for this task. One item of note, it is that the shutter release button lock ring lever is linked to the shutter release button lock mechanism. Test it before installing. And make certain that the shutter release button detent bearing and detent spring are in the proper position before installing the shutter release button ring. Remember to position it over the spring, over the bearing, so that the lock lever is still linked properly with the lock mechanism. Once the function has again been tested, the set screws can be gently tightened. And after installation, test one more time. Remember, before removing the shutter speed dial, it was set to ASA 25 and a shutter speed of 2000. As long as the linkage underneath was not moved, the shutter speed dial should seat easily. With the dial installed, of course, check the function of the ASA and the shutter speed linkage. Oftentimes, the decorator ring that's around the wind shaft will fall off because the glue dries out. Make certain that it's in position before installing the advanced lever cam. Then comes the advanced lever and the advanced lever washer stack and the advanced lever retainer. Plyo bond adhesive shall be used to glue the decorator shutter dial decorator plate back in place, and then if you have an oops, you can touch it up at this time. And we'll test the counter final time, shutter speeds, and finally when the film door is popped open, the counter does reset. Excellent.
Thank you for watching. Inspired? Check back for new video postings.